Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott, and I'm here today to give you a quick review of the second of the e-bikes from Hiboy that I have tested. Spent some time initially and did a review of the EX6, which as you can see is a smaller, more commuter design bike, whereas the P6 is a larger, more of a mountain bike type replacement designed for off-road adventuring, but then also obviously for a little bit more speed and power, though at the cost, as we're going to see, of a little less range. Like the EX6, this is a Class 3 e-bike, and so you probably should check local regulations if you're considering purchasing one of these. You may need to tune it back, or depending on the local regulations. Here in Ontario, Canada, there isn't a whole lot of stiff regulations when it comes to dealing with these, so we have the way that we have used them, we've had no issues with along the way. Now, one of the major differences between these two is that there is a significantly larger motor on the P6. It is a 750 watt Bafang electric motor here compared to the 500 watt motor that we saw. Now, in both cases, they are a brushless motor, which is great for longevity, obviously, but this is a large capacity motor, and thus, as a byproduct, it gives you a little bit more power. In terms of your top speed, you can go up to 28 miles an hour or about 45 kilometers an hour, but again, make sure that it's legal for you to do that in the area that you're at. So ironically, while we do have a larger motor here, we do have a little bit smaller battery capacity. Not necessarily a great combination, and so instead of a 15 amp hour battery, we have a 13 amp hour battery that also runs at 48 volts, and so as a byproduct, the range is a little bit smaller. You can get about 30 miles on electricity alone, with a 60-mile peak range if it's a combination with some pedal assistance there, and so that's 60 miles versus up to 75 miles. So obviously designed for two different purposes: the commuter-oriented bike, with a little bit longer range, whereas this is more of an adventuring off-road type bike, and so a little more power and speed, a little less range at the end of the day. Both of them take about 6 to 7 hours to charge to full capacity from 0 to 100%. This also has an LCD screen up here, and the LCD screen gives you readout on a variety of different bits of information, including your overall odometer. It will give you information on the different modes that you can select on it, what your state of charge is, your overall speed, things like that. It does have a front headlight on it as before, and we do have a horn there that is nice and loud. Now, what we don't have is the mud flaps, as you can see here, that cover that, and so if you're, again, commuting, off-roading, maybe you're a little less worried about getting dirty if you're out off-roading and having fun with that. It does have a removable battery, and in fact the battery is easy to remove here. It's an easy process using the key, and so it is secured in that sense by the key. However, I did want to highlight that right now the key is not in here. I can turn this on and I can ride it right now, so I can't remove the battery, so you don't have to worry about somebody stealing the battery. But this, the EX6 is designed a little bit more around you not even being able to operate it electrically, at least, without using the without having the battery installed. So in this case, like, I can't, without that key in place and it turned on, I can't actually power this one on, whereas with the P6 I can do that. Again, two different bikes for two different purposes. Another primary difference, at least in terms of the physical design, as you can see, this is a larger frame. It is not a step-through design, so maybe a little less unisex when it comes to that, and a little less friendly maybe for just kind of jumping on and off when it comes to a commuting, and more for just a riding experience. As you can see, the tires themselves are significantly larger. They're both 4-inch wide tires, but these are a 26-inch versus a 20-inch, and so this is going to be better for, again, more difficult conditions, a little bit of rock crawling, things like that as a part of it. It also has a very comfortable saddle, which I appreciate. Handlebars are adjustable, obviously seat height is adjustable, and there are some really great shocks on here that are also fully adjustable. The shocks have 80 millimeters of travel in them, and so you have a lot of flexibility for how you're going to set that up for a particular ride. The battery itself is waterproof. It's IPX4 rated, and so you don't have to worry about it getting wet if you're out in adverse conditions. The electrical components are well sealed, and so you can go out in rough conditions and not worry about that. We do have a little bit more flexibility when it comes to the gearing for just the bicycle portion here, and it is geared rather than a 7-gear Shimano Altus system. We actually have a 9-gear, and I did note one of the things that I personally complained about with the EX6 is that at the top speed, the kind of the ratio between the pedaling and the power of the electric motor means that you're kind of spinning your wheels, so to speak. In this case, while you're not doing a lot when you're up at speed, you are able to get actually at least feel like a little bit of, just a tiny bit of resistance, which makes it a little safer to continue to pedal there at that point. Once again, we do have front and back good disc brakes here, which are important to help this thing stop, since it can go, fairly quick. And 28 miles per hour or 45 kilometers an hour may not sound fast, but when you're kind of flying along the street on a bicycle type contraption like this, it feels a whole lot faster than what it does if you're in a closed-in vehicle. So let's talk about some of the pros and cons. First of all, some of the pros. It is fast, and you particularly notice, I'm a longtime cyclist, what I particularly notice is the ability to get up to speed very fast. The acceleration is kind of unnatural for a bicycle. You can really get up to speed faster. I also appreciated the fact that the packaging for assembly was better than it was on the EX6. There was fewer steps in the installation process, and unlike the EX6, all the right tools for assembly were in the box right from the get-go. And so I found my assembly time was quicker, and the assembly process was easier. Also, this can climb up to a 15% grade, and so there's just in the electric power, and so it really is versatile for going off-road in that sense, even if you're dealing with a very steep grade. Because it has a higher top speed, just on a practical level, we talked in our last video about Ryan's commute to school. He was able to shave another minute off of that commute time, which means now that he is literally within a minute of how fast we can get him to school in our car driving him. And so that tells me that this is a really kind of efficient commuter device, even though this one's not so much commuter oriented, but it is an effective device for getting around in a city, as long as you're observing the local bylaws when it comes to that, because you can actually move along quite quickly and efficiently in that way. It also has a comfortable ride. For me personally, obviously, I'm quite tall, and so this is a little bit small for me, even with the seat all the way up, whereas the P6 is a better fit for my frame, although as you can see right now, the seat is adjusted for my son Ryan and not for my long legs, but I bring that seat up, and it's a very comfortable ride for me. The shocks make it comfortable overall, and so I find that it's fun, and that at the end of the day, that's the big thing. It's fun. Those larger tires means that you can go over more obstacles more easily. The fact that the battery is removable is obviously important. I like being able to charge that inside for a more efficient and a safer charging kind of setting. And if you live in an apartment, for example, you might be able to lock the bike up outside and just bring the battery in to charge. And overall, it seems to be well built. I noticed that the weld points are nice and solid on it. The frame material, when you assemble something, you do get an appreciation for the parts going into it, and it feels like that this is a well-made machine. Obviously, we'll find out over the long haul how well-made it is, but we've been using it for about 5-6 weeks at this point, and so far, so good. No complaints there when it comes to that. So how about some cons? I will say that I find this one maybe a little bit less theft-proof, in the sense that right now someone could get on this and they could use it and have full kind of advantage of it. The only thing that the locking is going to keep them from doing is actually removing the battery. But if they, had an appropriate charge device, they could still plug into this and charge it and use it in a full sense. Whereas the EX6 was maybe a little bit more thoughtfully designed when it comes to that kind of theft prevention aspect, to where someone is less likely to take it if they can't even, turn it on and accelerate it. They're just treating it as a normal bike. Also, for some people, not for me personally, but not being stepped through might be a con for some people. And obviously having the shorter range, smaller battery capacity and smaller range. In the perfect world, we could have small batteries, we could get lots of speed and lots of distance. But battery technology is limited, so it would have been nice to maybe have at least a similar capacity battery to what we found in the EX6, and so that you can get just a little bit more range out of this machine. But my list of cons is relatively brief compared to the various pros. And since the time that I did this review, I've been looking at other e-bikes, and I realize how good the specs are on this Hiboy. Even when I'm complaining about the range, but compared to a lot of other similar e-bikes and similarly priced e-bikes, the range is actually good, and the top speed is obviously very good as well. So what is that price? We're talking about $1,400 US at normal pricing, though at the moment, because of a sale that's going on right now, it's actually priced at a little under $1,100, and it's a really great value at that price point. Obviously, there's two different bikes for two different purposes, and I'm glad that there is some range there at Hiboy, some different options. This is a machine that's probably more well suited to me personally and what I would like to do with it, whereas this would be more well suited to someone who's looking for a commuter bike, having the rack and being able to carry some things, the step-through design, things like that, a little bit longer range. And so if you're looking for an adventure, mountaineering, off-road type bike, this is a lot of fun. And of course, it makes powering through some of those really steep grades and steep hills, well, let's just say a whole lot more fun when you're not having to provide all the power yourself. I'm Dustin Abbott, and if you'd like more information about the Hiboy P6, you can look in the description down below. There are links there if you'd like to do some further research for yourself. There's also linkage there to follow myself or Craig on social media, to become a patron, to get channel merchandise. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, have a great day, and let the light in.